The moment I signed the papers to sell my yacht, Karen was already watching from her porch, phone in hand, eyes full of judgment. I didn't even have time to close the gate before she came storming across the street yelling, "You can't sell that boat. It belongs to the HOA marina." I froze for a second, trying to process her nonsense. That yacht had been mine long before this neighborhood even existed. When I told her that, she smirked and pulled out her phone. "We'll see about that," she hissed, dialing 911 right in front of me. Within minutes, I heard sirens approaching. My heart sank, not because I was guilty, but because I knew exactly how this would look. Rich-looking man, expensive boat, crazy neighbor screaming theft. Karen started shouting at the officers before they even got out of their car. "Arrest him. He's selling HOA property without authorization." The cops looked at her, then at me, completely confused. One of them asked for proof, and Karen waved a printed paper like it was the Constitution. "It's in our HOA bylaws," she said dramatically. I could tell the officers were trying not to laugh. One of them quietly asked me if I had ownership documents, so I handed him the original title and registration, both in my name. Karen's face turned red. She snatched the paper from the cop's hand, shouting, "These are fake! I'll report this to the HOA president." I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. Within an hour, 3 HOA board members showed up at my dock, clipboards in hand, demanding access to my property for an inspection. That's when I noticed one of them wearing a body cam, recording everything. Something was off, way off, and when I checked my security feed later that night, what I found made my blood run cold. When I replayed the footage from my dock cameras, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The HOA board members weren't just inspecting my property. They were snooping through my garage, taking photos of my tools, my paperwork, even opening my mail. Karen stood behind them like a queen, giving orders. "Make sure you get a clear shot of that title," she said, pointing at the yacht documents I had left on my workbench. I zoomed in and saw something worse. One of them slipped a folded paper inside my file folder. They were planting fake evidence. My jaw clenched. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was a setup. The next morning, I got a letter taped to my front door. It had the HOA logo and read, "Notice of property violation, unauthorized. Commercial sale on HOA premises." Karen had signed it, herself as acting compliance officer. I almost laughed. There was no such position in our HOA. I decided to play it smart. Instead of confronting them right away, I took the letter straight to my friend Mark, a county investigator who owed me a favor. When he saw the letter, he raised an eyebrow and said, "You know this seal is fake, right?" He scanned the QR code on the bottom and frowned. "This links to a private Dropbox account, not the HOA's system." That's when it all started to click. Karen wasn't just trying to get me in trouble. She was running something behind the scenes. Mark leaned back in his chair and said, "Looks like your HOA's been cooking paperwork. If I'm right, this could open a full-blown investigation." I smiled for the first time that week. "Good," I said quietly. "Let's find out what they've been hiding." That night, I placed a small tracker near the HOA office door and waited in my truck. Around midnight, a silver SUV pulled up. Karen was driving. She unlocked the door with a key she wasn't supposed to have. I started recording. She wasn't alone. Through the night vision lens of my camera, I watched Karen step inside the HOA office with 2 men I'd never seen before. They weren't board members. They looked more like contractors or tech guys. One of them carried a briefcase, the other had a laptop. Karen whispered something, and they started transferring boxes from a locked cabinet onto the desk. I zoomed in. The labels on the boxes read, "Resident Fines, a private ledger." My pulse quickened. I knew exactly what that meant. They were collecting cash fines under the table, never reporting them to the HOA books. That money was supposed to fund neighborhood maintenance, not line Karen's pockets. Suddenly, one of the men turned toward the door. I ducked down in my truck, holding my breath. They stepped outside for a smoke, laughing about how nobody would ever trace it. I got the whole thing on camera, faces, voices, everything. The next morning, I emailed the footage straight to Mark. Within hours, he called me back. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "We checked HOA's tax filings. There's over $200,000 missing from the past 2 years, and guess whose name shows up on the transfer authorizations? Karen, I said quietly. Bingo. By noon, county investigators were already drafting a search warrant. But I didn't tell Karen a thing. I went about my day like nothing happened, washing my car while she strutted down the street, pretending to be untouchable. Enjoy your boat money while it lasts, she yelled, smirking. I just smiled back. You too, Karen. You'll need it where you're going. She frowned, confused. What's that supposed to mean? I shrugged and went inside, locking the door behind me. In a few hours, she'd find out exactly what I meant. By evening, flashing red and blue lights filled the entire street. Karen came running out of her house in her robe, shouting, "What's going on?" But when she saw the county investigators stepping out with badges, her face drained of color. Mark walked up the driveway holding a clipboard. "Karen Miller?" he said firmly. "We have a warrant to search. The HOA office and your personal property related to financial misconduct." Karen laughed nervously. This must be a mistake. I'm the HOA president." Mark didn't even blink. "Not anymore." As the officers began collecting files, Karen tried to stop them, waving her arms. "You can't do this. This is harassment." But when they pulled open the safe inside the office, silence fell. Inside were thick envelopes, each labeled with homeowners' names and cash amounts. Stacks of it. One of the officers whistled. "Looks like you've been busy, ma'am." Karen's knees almost gave out. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered. "Oh, it looks exactly like what it is," I said from behind her, stepping forward. Everyone turned. Karen's eyes widened when she saw me standing there with my phone, still recording. "Remember when you called 911 on me for selling my own yacht? That video went viral," I added, smirking. "Now the cops are watching your show." Mark chuckled quietly. "Sir, thanks for your cooperation. You've just helped us uncover one of the largest HOA fraud cases in the county," Karen screamed as they cuffed her, shouting about fake charges and conspiracies. The other board members looked terrified, because they knew they were next. As the police cars pulled away, the neighbors began stepping out of their houses, watching in shock. One of them, an elderly veteran who had always stayed quiet, turned to me and said, "Took long enough. That woman's been bullying people for years." I nodded, "Yeah, but not anymore." The next morning, the local news ran the headline, "HOA President Arrested, County Launches. Full investigation into corruption and fraud." Standing by the water where my yacht used to be, I smiled. Funny, I said to myself. She called 911 on me for selling my boat, and ended up sinking her own ship. When you try to ruin someone's life with lies, don't be surprised when the truth calls the cops on you. And just like that, peace returned to the neighborhood. No fake notices. No screaming Karens. Just quiet waves, real justice, and freedom on my own land. The end.